Hey guys, welcome to another video. Today I wanted to do just a simple laid-back chat about what it is to be Black in Canada. Obviously today is the last day of Black History Month, so I thought why not close it out with just a few important things I think that I wanted to talk about. I first thought that I was just gonna present like 5-10 different people who had a great impact in Canadian history, but I realized that I wanted to go a little deeper than that and just have more of a conversation. And obviously I'm still going to bring some of that stuff up, but I just wanted to take the time to go deeper and kind of just talk about some of the stuff that I've been through and what I've noticed in different situations. And yeah, so let's get into it. So the first thing I wanted to get started about is the fact that there's a lot about Black history that in Canada specifically that I don't know about, and that although I'm trying to learn, there's things that I obviously have to keep learning. I think growing up in school, it definitely failed me. We talked about, slavery in the States maybe for like a month or two, but we never went deep into actual Black history that goes beyond just slavery. And on top of that, it was always taught in a way that it's like slavery ended, racial issues are kind of a thing, but not really, and the world is great now because we defeated slavery. And I think that growing up, and even now, more young people are just realizing how impactful that was to just not include all of Black history in education, and how that's kind of detrimental, and how now we're just trying to change it. And even growing up, I think even with research projects and things that I've done for school or just in my personal life, it's always been about American history and not necessarily about Canadian history. So I'm definitely trying to learn more about what Canadian history is and what it means to be Black in Canada. And I think what's important to note here is that being Black in Canada will be different when you're in a small town versus when you're in a big city. Just speaking from what I've seen or what people have told me, like if you're growing up in a town, there's no Black people, and then you move to a big city, which, friends have explained to me, you move to a big city and it's diverse and you meet a lot of different people from different cultures. I think it definitely changes people's perspectives of who Black people are, and I don't think that that's talked about enough, because there's this false idea which is false, that racism isn't a problem in Canada. Especially last summer when we had a lot of the Black Lives Matter protests, we saw that even politicians were saying that, racism in Canada is not a thing, which isn't true. So I think it's definitely important to realize that there's still a lot of work to be done here, and it doesn't even just limit itself to Black people, but also just people of color in general and First Nations people of Canada. So I think it's just really important to acknowledge that this is something that everyone needs to talk about more, but today I'm just going to be talking specifically about how that impacts Black people. One of the other things that I wanted to talk about was representation, and I think it was lacking for me growing up. I think now in media and things it's easier, not that it's at its best and where it should be, but it's definitely more prevalent, like Black cartoon characters and things like that. That wasn't really a thing growing up, so seeing that that's changing now is incredibly important. Like I remember when it was the Olympics, I forget which year, but anyways, I'll put it somewhere, where André de Grasse was sprinting with Usain Bolt, and you could just see that there was kind of this camaraderie between them two, even though it's a competition and it's in front of millions of people from different countries. It was just really nice to see like two Black people just being like, you know what, like let's just have a blast and like just run. And I'll put up a picture, but I think that just spoke to how I think a lot of the time Black people are portrayed by being, like these aggressive people who don't care about others, or who on the other spectrum is like lazy and don't do anything. And I think that just that image has always stuck with me. Like literally they're both smiling at each other like during the race and just appreciating the competition. I think that was a very powerful moment, and I'm really happy that so many people got to see it. With that being said, there's a lot that I haven't seen. So doing some of the research that I've done, I have my notes here, so I'm going to make sure that I have the right names and everything. But for example, Eugenia Dudu, who is the CEO of Visions of Science Network for Learning. She's a chemist, and so basically this organization kind of promotes the advancement of Black youth or underprivileged youth in STEM programs. And I think that that's another thing that people don't really talk about. It's like Black people in science and education, and although our contributions have been incredible, I'll put links about this down below as well, it's not really noted or talked about. So I think doing the research and seeing that especially a Black woman was kind of thriving in this field was surprising to me, because not surprising in the way that I don't think that Black people are smart enough to do that. No, that's not it at all. But the idea that there can be female Black leaders in these fields, and I think starting to work, especially in the government the past couple of years, whenever I see a Black woman at the table or even at the head of the table talking about things and addressing issues, it always has more of an impact on me than I think it would. Like, it definitely takes me a second to be like, oh my gosh, wow, this is a thing, and I can see myself in those roles, and just being able to see that it's possible to do anything, and that it's real, because I think a lot of the time it just feels like some far off dream that can't happen for me. But I think when I see Black women in powerful positions, or just Black people in positions of power, it's definitely really impactful, and I would like to see more of that promoted, especially in high school. When we were doing job fairs and everything like that, it wasn't really talked about, and I wish that in high school it would have been presented on a broader scale, so that we as students would have been able to see the fact that it doesn't matter who you are, what you look like, it's still possible to be in these really important roles, and that we shouldn't be afraid to go reach for that. Like, I did a research project I think a year ago for school. I was talking about how a lot of Black students don't believe that they're going to be able to afford university, or that they won't be able to do university, which I think is heartbreaking, especially the fact that we need people of color in powerful positions. Like, what shocked me is, like, in the RCMP, I'm looking at my notes again, so for example, in 2012, Devon Clunas was the first Black chief of police, and then Craig Gibson was the first Black commanding officer of the RCMP. And when you really hear 2012, that was like yesterday. Like, it's really not that far off. And the fact that we're still having firsts, especially I think in the security fields, because we know how much policing in the Black community is important. Just seeing that people, like Black people, are just being introduced in these important roles that will have a long-term impact on how we police people of color and Black people specifically. So just again, this idea of representation and being able to see more Black people in these leading positions, in power positions, leading companies, founding organizations, I think is just incredibly important. Just another thing I want to talk about, I don't want to make this video too long, so I'm probably just gonna wrap it up soon, but there's definitely something to be said about acknowledging the fact that Black history can be positive. We're seeing that even though things just started to really get moving in certain fields, and that there's still a lot of work to do, I think it's also important to acknowledge the fact that Black people have come an incredibly long way. And although the fight keeps going, and we're going to keep striving to be the best, do the best, and just be able to be acknowledged in society and hold positions that we deserve, I think it's just really, really important to acknowledge the fact that we've done a lot. So just to show you guys how far we've come, so when my grandparents got married, so my grandmother's French and my grandfather's Haitian, it was still illegal to have interracial marriages in the United States. And I think that just understanding that, and when I, growing up, you hear things, but when you really start to understand different things, you start to see how far we've come, to the point that interracial relationships, although they are still stigmatized to a certain degree, it's definitely not to the point where it's illegal. And I just think that it's really, really important to give yourself that pat in the back, even if it's just having conversations, whether it's at work or with your friends or just in academic settings. I think it's really important to acknowledge the fact that we've come far, and that just means that, with all of us just being more aware of the issues at hand, so much more progress can be done in the next couple of years. And I really do believe that as time will progress and, the next generations will come, it'll just keep getting better and better, because we're actively putting the work to have conversations and just be really honest with each other about what we need as people, how we need to progress, and what we actually need concretely to be able to have a better future, and to have these changes happening, and that people are, actually trying to learn, whether they are people of color or not, about the Black struggle, for lack of a better word. I think that is incredibly powerful, and we have just so much more potential and so much more that will come, and that's what I'm looking forward to. So I kind of just wanted to wish you guys a happy last day of Black History Month. I hope that you guys took the time to research, to really learn, and if you haven't, there's still time to do that. There's nothing stopping you. February is not the only month you can learn about these things, so definitely keep going. And yeah, that's it for me today. Bye.